I'm Nikko, and I've been teaching a course about a living economy. Now, when I'm talking about an economy, I'm talking about lots of things that are happening in a country that involve trading things, selling things, making things. Things like a farmer growing food, or a factory making just about anything else, or a store selling all of the above. And the things that they do with each other, like the store is going to have to buy the food and buy whatever the factory makes. And then people who work at the farm and work at the factory, they might buy from the store. And then the store might put their profits into a bank that might then make a loan to give to the farmer. Now you have all of these people working together, giving each other money and goods and making things. And what happens then? What might happen if you take one major thing out? One major thing like, well, we haven't talked about it yet, but something like oil. What if most of the oil coming into a country from something like maybe a pipeline breaking, what if that stops? What if suddenly you've got a great big oil shortage? What happens then? Well, because a lot of people need oil, the price of things like gasoline and plastics, that's going to go way up. So people who use that, people like the farmer that needs to get food to places and that needs to fuel equipment, they're going to have much higher costs, which means that, well, first off, they're going to have to raise prices a lot. And secondly, they're going to have a lot less money on hand. So they might not have enough money to give to workers, to give in wages. They might have to lay people off. They might have to fire people or cut their wages. So now people will have a lot less money on hand because they might have been laid off. They might just be getting less money from their job. And the people who are getting the same amount of money, well, they're going to have higher costs from things like gas or from things like food, which now costs more. They might have higher costs, and they might be worried that they'll lose their jobs, so they're going to put a lot of the money that they have into savings. So now they're going to be spending a lot less, which means that companies will have less money, which means that they can spend less on their workers, which means that people will have less money, which means that people will be spending less, which means that companies will have less money, and so on in a cycle of sadness that can lead to recession and even, if it's bad enough, depression. So what do you do about this? What do you do to break this cycle? Well, you can just wait until the economy hits rock bottom, until people are only doing the things that they have to do, buying the things that they have to buy, and it can't really get much worse. Or you can do something that a guy named John Maynard Keynes started talking about in the early 20th century, and you can have the government come in and try to break the cycle by giving companies money and by giving people money, so that the bits of the cycle where people spend less and companies spend less, those stop happening, or at least stop happening as much. Does this work? There are some people who say that it won't. There are some people who say that the government shouldn't interfere, or that the government doesn't have as much money because people aren't paying as much in taxes. Although, on the other hand, people who are spending more, they might be putting money into the government because, well, the government is a safe place to put money to save because it's going to be around in 10 years, no matter whether or not banks are. So the government may or may not have enough money to do this. And the government may or may not be able to help by interceding. Which one works better? Right now, fortunately, we've got a bit of a natural experiment, a natural way to tell whether or not this Keynesian economics, this government stimulus, actually works. We've got America putting a lot of money into government stimulus, and a lot of European countries doing something called austerity, where the government tightens its belt instead and doesn't spend a lot of money on stimulus. And, well, it'll be clearer in a few years or a few decades which one actually works. But for now, it seems like we've got some results. It seems like America is doing better. Like Keynesian theory and stimulus might be the way to go.